Okay, let's begin. I am Lanice Antoine Shelley, and I'll be your host through constructive, healing-based conversations designed to illuminate the adoptee, parents, and the adoption curious. We center the topics around community, mentorship, leadership, and healing, so you get a multi-dimensional view that is ultimately empowering. These are the voices who could not speak when they were young. Hey y'all, if you've seen me on Instagram, I'm in my summer glow phase and I am unapologetic about it. My hair is luscious. Fun fact, I didn't start properly treating and doing my own hair until I was a grown adult because like many Black adoptees, no one showed me how to do my own hair. And because I love you all so much, I'm going to share with you my hair secret. I'm always on the lookout for things you'd love and things that will enhance your well-being inside and out. We Unique Cosmetics sent me their Moisture Lock pomade and scalp and hair therapy oil from their Metamorphosis line, and it's so decadent, light, and nourishing, fam. This has become a hair routine staple. It has a soft lemongrass scent that people comment on when I walk by or when they're doing my hair because now I have boho locks. They also sent me a 15% discount link for you to try their products and hair tutorial service. And Unique Cosmetics is Black owned and operated by a mother and daughter duo dedicated to helping the adoptee community. Check out the link in the show notes. And this is for all ages, fam. So tell your friends. So come on, embark on a hair-loving journey with We Unique World. From interactive workshops to premium products, they're all about empowering you to embrace your unique hair journey. Because remember, all hair is good hair, especially when it's healthy. Hello, my friends, my fam. Whew, what an incredible year. I know that I am crawling to the finish line and it's only April. How have you been? How is your heart? I vacillate from overwhelm to listlessness about every day. I'm still trying to find the balance. I know the key is to prime my mornings with a strong spiritual practice of meditation, journaling, hot tea, and contemplation. I didn't quite have that this morning, and it took me a while to catch up. Do you have routines that help prime your day for success? If you start the day off with at least one triumph that helps set you on the right foot, well, just speaking for myself, it centers and sets my mind right. Enough of that. Let's get to it. I'm starting off this season with our longtime sister-aunt friend, Dr. Juliana Olson Deans. I had her come on for a conversation about the drama triangle. Now, I had no idea this diagram existed until recently I heard it on a podcast. It was providential because I have found myself in reoccurring loop of drama, upset, emotional reactivity, conflict, disagreements, tiffs, triggers, and squabbles. I've had quite a few relationships fall away this year, though I do believe that all of them ran their course. Along the way, I had to ask and examine why. Had my values shifted? Was I being fair? Were they right? What is the healthiest path forward? Conversely, I have mended relationships as well. One being, I hadn't spoken to my sister in over a year, and I realized that I was done with whatever made us mad in the first place. I wanted her in my life, and that meant accepting her for who she is. It's that balance again, my friends. Anywho, I have been in this hamster wheel of victim, persecutor, and rescuer, and I made the concerted effort to step outside of that trifecta mess and realign. How do you do that? Well, let's find out. Juliana.
The way you say my name sometimes.
So
Takes it back.
I want to talk about this drama triangle, right? I listened to a podcast and this came up. And I know this past year I have been in either end of the drama triangle. And I want to break that down because I know a lot of people probably share the same kind of cyclical issues of finding themselves in rescuer, prosecutor, or victimized stance in life. And I know as an adoptee, it's easy for us to fall into either one. And so let's discuss it. What do you know about the drama triangle?
First, to be honest with you, the drama triangle, I don't use that often. It's very similar to another approach that I often use, which is Bowen in it. And
say that again.
It's Bowen.
Bowen. Okay.
Yeah. Bowen. He's a family therapist. And the whole point about Bowen is similar to drama triangle, but there's a triangle in which people come, and it's, like I said, it's very similar to this. And I think we need to first talk about who started the drama triangle, which is Stephen Karpman. Mm-hmm. So what Bowen says is, if there's any conflict in the family, what happens is whoever is having the conflict usually goes and finds somebody to rescue them, which is Karpman. And then the person who goes and rescues them, they kind of feel like they're a hero, right? Oh, I'm the rescuer. I'm going to save the day from something you already mentioned, the persecutor. Because a persecutor is almost like the bully. And the whole point of this is called differentiation of self, and that's what the goal as family therapist is, to identify these patterns. And then whoever it is that feels like they're the victim, they need to differentiate themselves. It's called differentiation of self. And so it's similar, but I don't use Karpman at all. So when you brought this up, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is great because it's extending my studies again, because I think last time I focused on Karpman was probably before 2006. So it's been a minute. But the information they share is really great. And it took me back to when I first got married. And when I first got married, some of the patterns that was going on between my husband and myself, it also went back to my adoption day. And I can share some more as we continue. But yeah, I don't use it regularly.
Well, I had no idea it existed until about a month and a half ago. And there's been a lot of dramatic things that are happening in my life. And when this person on this podcast said, I decided to step out of the drama triangle, that was revelatory to me because I didn't even know I was in one. And I think a lot of people move through the world unaware of their participation willfully or indirectly. And it's imperative that we acknowledge where we are on the spectrum so that we can make the conscious choice to step out, to step back, to step away from this triangle. And I just want to break down, I've seen a lot of different variations and descriptions of what this means, but I liked this one on leadershiptribe.com, and I'll leave it in the show notes. But I liked how concise it was. It really got to the point. So victim is poor me. Victims often feel victimized, trapped, helpless, and hopeless. They think they are at the mercy of life. They are unwilling to take responsibility for their undesirable circumstances and don't think they have the power to change their lives. That really resonated with me. What do you think about that, Juliana?
I think, like I said before, it really made me think about like the beginning of my marriage, like so growing up as far as an adoptee, I see myself when we would have problems more like a victim of what you just said, and some other concise words that I would use is they feel powerless, helpless, And that's why they had that poor me mentality that you mentioned.
Mm.
For me, my dad was like my hero, So if there was any conflict between my mom and I would like, Daddy, come rescue, come like make it okay.
Yeah.
And then I noticed after I got married, I was looking for my dad in essence, because they say, especially as being a daddy's girl, if there was issues between my husband and I would be like, how come my husband's not like my daddy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is what's great about you bringing up this topic is when you look at the drama triangle, I know the source you used was leadership. So often people, this is happening in the workplace, but this is happening in every aspect of our lives.
Exactly. And I find it fascinating that you had someone to rescue you. Because as you were saying that, as you were explaining that you would go to your dad when your mom was acting out, or I had this epiphanal thought that I have never had that rescuer. And in my adult life, just like yourself, I sought out someone to rescue me, to protect and guide me, because I did not have that. I came from a single parent household. And so if my mom acted out, then there was no other alternative. There was my godmother, but there was a time when my godmother didn't live with us. And I think that both of them were equal in their disciplinary tactics. So it wasn't as if one was going to bend.
Yes.
So yeah, that's interesting, because I've always wanted, and I feel like now, like with so much that's going on in the world and in my personal life, I have looked and sought out a rescuer, and I have to check myself. I'm like, Lanice, stop seeking outside of yourself to be rescued. You have to start from within.
Yeah, I agree with you. And don't forget, I love Mickey Mouse. I used to be the biggest Disney person. I used to have Mickey Mouse, everything, shoelaces, socks, just everything. And then as an adult, I felt betrayed by Disney. I was like, Disney lying to us. Happily ever happened that happily ever after really does not occur. It's more of a mentality thing, And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that drama triangle is all over Disney. When you think about it, because the rescuer is the damsel in distress. And then the rest, the persecutor, let's say like Little Red Robin Hood, who's the persecutor? It's the wolf. When we look at Jasmine, even though she was so independent and strong, she was still somewhat a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Jafar is the persecutor. When we look at the Little Mermaid, so Disney, like the world has been selling us some of this too. And it's been, unfortunately, with this month being Women's Month, it's been the woman who most of the time, in essence, becomes the victim. And so we do need to get rid of this narrative.
Yeah, of women needing to be saved.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes is, "We have been poisoned by fairy tales."
Exactly.
And I think that that's exactly right. And having this victimized stance in life is draining and doesn't get you towards what it is that you essentially want. Let's move on to rescuer. Let me help you. I know that I am a rescuer. I'm a fixer. I'm a problem solver. I, in my drama triangle, have become, early on, I was just like, let me just do this. I can do it by myself. There's a lot of just like, I guess, self-righteousness in that too, and pride, because you are insistent upon getting it done and getting it done your way. And I'm definitely guilty of that. This is what it says. Rescuers constantly intervene on behalf of the victims and try to save victims from perceived harm. They feel guilty of standing by and watching people drown. Rescuers may have all the good intention and strive to help others as they see necessary. They fail to realize that by offering short-term fixes to victims, they keep victims dependent and neglect their own needs. This is why rescuers often find themselves pressured, tired, and may not have time to finish their own tasks as they are busy firefighting for the victims as they arise.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you said they, in their attempt to save the victims, the victims become dependent on them. In other words, the rescuer really starts enabling the victim.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I look back on some situations when I relied on someone to rescue me, and I did become dependent. I was like, okay, so-and-so is going to speak up and they're going to do this and do that. And I think it harkens all the way back to my childhood where I did not feel I was rescued, which is so supremely ironic because in this adoption community, it's all about rescuing.
Yeah.
It's all about victimizing and rescuing and persecuting. And the adoption community was built on this drama triangle, and it thrives because of it.
Definitely, and not even just our adoptive parents or adoptive family members, but the community, the way they see adoption, because their whole thing is, wow, they saved you. I didn't know I even needed to be saved.
I'm sorry.
What was I doing at 2 years old?
Yeah. And it's that mentality of feeling proud of yourself that you rescued something or someone. And you didn't necessarily do that because, as you and I have talked about before in previous episodes, that we have families. We had families that loved us and cared for us, albeit they didn't care for us the way that this first world American society deems fit, but they did the best that they could.
Yes. And especially like my mom, she wanted me, she just couldn't afford me. It's not that she couldn't even afford me, but she couldn't afford to care for like my medical needs, So for her, she actually she made the biggest sacrifice. So yes, I know my adoptive parents made sacrifices financially and even love. They were loving parents. But honestly, my bio mom made sacrifices too. And sometimes we forget about the sacrifices biological parents and family members make. And I don't think that's fair to them.
Hey, I want to share with you something that has changed my life. It's more like my therapist. Why is she so important? Well, because I want to win in this life. I want to break through the carousel of stories I've compiled that hold me back, that keep me from expanding into my full potentiality. Stories of unworthiness, not enoughness, and even stories of questioning why I am here. I also want to stop dumping my unsorted feelings on the people around me and reacting with the same behavioral patterns that keep me stuck. Conversations with my therapist have made me more confident, clearer in my intention, and more centered in my spirit. That is why I am elated that we are sponsored by BetterHelp, where you can, from wherever you happen to be right now, match with a therapist tailored to your exact needs. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. Someone who you can text at any time and schedule online for either a chat, Zoom, or phone call. And if it turns out that your therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional cost. Visit the link in the show notes, betterhelp.com, when they were young, to get 10% off the first month. You need to click the link in the show notes in order to get the 10% discount. I want to see you win, beloved. Let's do it together. Visit the link, betterhelp.com, when they were young.
Yep, that's exactly right. So on to persecutors. It's all your fault. Persecutors are like critical parents who are strict and firm and set boundaries. They tend to think that they must win at any cost. Persecutors blame the victims and criticize the behavior of rescuers without providing appropriate guidance, assistance, or a solution to the problem. They are critical and good at finding fault and control with order and rigidity. They keep the victims oppressed and sometimes can be a bully. Wow, this one is like something I've gone through for this whole year. But what are your thoughts, Juliana?
No, it's the same thing. Going back to Disney, the persecutors are villains.
Mm-hmm.
What you said. And they love to play the blame game. And as soon as you recognize that and you recognize those patterns, I think that's when the awakening comes as far as how do you break the cycle.
Yeah.
Because often if you don't recognize it, you just said, oh, this person just wants me to be a better version of myself. Like as we tell ourselves, this person's just keeping me humbled, or this person's just trying to help me out, make me better decisions. No, they're taking advantage of you. They're taking advantage of your resources, either together or separately. I can tell you so many like marital cases in which there is somebody who's a persecutor and the other person reframes in their mind to make it all right. So they stay in the relationship. There's a lot of manipulation going on.
Wow. I think we can all name someone in our lives that has been a persecutor. And also when we have persecuted, because this was a huge one for me, because it's so easy when things go wrong to blame other people and to not acknowledge where you played in the downfall or in the rattling of bones and feathers and the demise of a situation. It's so easy to point the finger outward. And so I was in acknowledgement of this triangle. I had to take a step back and examine my life and see where I was the persecutor, where I was being pushy and blaming and criticizing others. And the tricky bit, and I'm still figuring this out, I haven't mastered it. I don't think I will in this lifetime, but figuring out how to step out of this drama triangle. How do you think we can do that? Like what are some strategies to step out and back from all this drama?
Well, before we do that, I think you just brought up something that was very powerful, and we want the listeners to hear this, is even though naturally we may identify as one of the three characteristics, but at some point of our life, we've acted all three out,
Yes.
I think naturally, I'm either a rescuer or a victim. I'm more of a rescuer, and I know you said you're more of a rescuer. I'm more of a rescuer because I think everything can get solved some way. I would say there's more than one way to skin a cat, but then I'm like, but I've never skinned a cat. But we have to keep it. I still don't understand why we say that. And then I've had the victim mentality before, I know for me, I'm a natural encourager and supporter. With that being said, I have persecuted, well, even like my husband, like the people you're with 24/7. I know there's been times where I'm acting this way because of you, instead of taking responsibility for my own actions. So I make sure we really say we've all played a role. We've all this. And this is a thing with the drama triangle as well as the Bowen is really, this is all a scripted roles. Look at your relationship and think about the roles that you play, either at work or in your home with your adoptive parents. What is your one specific role? Are you the one who's often saying, oh, it's all your fault? Are you saying, poor me? Or are you saying, poor you, let me help you? Which one are you most likely? Once you identify that, then it's time, especially if your rescuer is feeling power. If you're a rescuer, definitely don't focus on the problem, because often victims need to get empowered. So often when a problem happens, what do? We focus on it, we ruminate again about it. It's like, oh no, we're stuck, we're powerless, we're helpless. But you don't have to be. You can change the role. And this is what's so cool is with you being the wonderful actress that you are, is how to turn something on and off. And that's what we need to learn, as common people. Mm-hmm. Don't have that skill. We need to change from becoming, instead of being so powerless, hey, today I want to wear that cape. I want to be my hero. And that's what we mean by getting empowered. So for the people who are victims, they need to figure out what is it that they truly want, and when the persecutors come and want to attack on them, I think that the way they can see it is this: change the role of the persecutor. Instead of seeing the persecutor as, oh, this person wants to blame me for everything, they're against me. Instead of seeing somebody like that, see them as a challenge in your own journey of self-exploration to, again, what is it that you want? And you need to express yourself appropriately. If somebody's and they want to take advantage of you, are you okay with that? If you're not okay, today's not the day, get behind me, devil. Or now, right now is not a good time for me. Or what you're saying, that doesn't hurt me anymore, And then you have to say, today, I'm not accepting this. I say often, we need to learn the skill of repelling things that are coming our way. Peace. You gotta hold that. You gotta guard that. If something comes to you, you need to repel that junk.
Yeah. And set those boundaries, right?
Exactly. And now, instead of saying, poor me, change that to, I can do it. I can do it. I may not be the strongest person. I may not be, especially for me, the tallest person, the most finances, but I've got enough desire to change something, so I can do it. What is my strength? And then you use that and you monopolize that. What do you think about that as far as victims?
I think it's imperative to have an affirmation, right? That triggers a sense of empowerment for the victims. It's so easy to feel victimized as an adoptee by a situation that was just supremely out of your control, right? That you are blamed for, that you are, there's a sense of indebtedness. There's a sense of you have to be something or do something and pretend all this time, right? And I just really want adoptees to feel empowered to set their own rules, to set their own boundaries, to set their own timeline. Exactly. And to know that that is available to them.
And I like that. And there's so many adoptees who are thinking, oh, I wasn't wanted. But what evidence do you have that supports that you weren't wanted? Instead of thinking I wasn't wanted, maybe you were. Why not say I was wanted, but they didn't have the resources, to care for me? Like, what evidence you have? And let's say you do have evidence, somebody's like, yeah, I didn't want you. Okay, but why didn't they want you? Think about the context. Maybe that's why they want to tell you, just to help you. But even if you're not wanted, think about all the people in your life now who want you around. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you may be a sister to somebody, you may be a sibling, a spouse, a great worker. Think about the people around you who say they love having you around. You know, don't just think of one person. And often we give and we amplify the negative way too much.
Well, that makes me think of what I said, I think our first season, that our story, our history informs. It is not an indictment. There are many signs every day or every other week of people rejecting us or not wanting us, but that does not define who I am and where I'm going in my life, right? Exactly. And so it's defining for yourself, what is this idea of wanting? Because there are biological families that people still don't feel they belong to, you know?
Yeah.
And so there is no true definition of it for any scenario, familial scenario out there, because everyone's definition of want, desire, belonging is different. You define that for yourself and understand that something that happens when you are an infant or a toddler or a young child is not a curse that follows you for the rest of your life. You can choose to define what family is, what belonging is, what wanting is. And as you said, Juliana, go ahead and identify those signs, those omens in your everyday life that lead you to that you are wanted now.
Yeah.
What is happening now? Like, I can name 5 people in my life that I feel deeply cherish and want me around and give me a sense of deep-rooted belonging. And so you have to hold fast to those truths as well, right?
Yes. And I also love everything that you said. Takes me back to something that Will Smith said that I love, which is you weren't responsible for what happened to you, especially when you're younger, but you are responsible for your healing. You know, and that's what I think victims really need to hear. You are responsible for your healing.
Yes.
You cannot change your environment right now, because I do know a lot of battered individuals who feel like they can't change their environment, you know? You are still responsible for your healing, even inside of that environment.
And something that victims, and I myself claim to be a victim I think 10 a.m. this morning, I was a victim. And then I moved to prosecutor, and then I moved back to the rescuer. So I just want people to remember that you can tell a lot about a person by the way they treat their grief, right? So those who are feeling victimized, how are you treating your grief? Are you recognizing it? Are you looking it in the eye? Are you processing it? Are you journaling? Are you meditating? Are you seeking outside help to process it, right? And so that will also inform the other places in the triangle. How you rescue and how you persecute is determined by what kind of victim you are, I feel, because we are led by our wounded selves, and our wounded selves is the one leading us towards this drama half the time, or the majority of the time.
And I agree 100%. So I think maybe now it's like, what do the rescuers need to do differently so they can break that pattern? You know, and for me, for rescuers is instead of coming and taking over, because most of the time we don't even ask, right? We just like, whoop, time to put on the cape. Just like,
absolutely.
Yeah, we just come. We got this. We're going to handle.
That's the joy of rescuing, though, is like, oh, no one asked me to do it.
Yes,
I'm doing it because I'm magnanimous. So get out of the way as I rescue you.
Well, now the question for the rescuers is, are you able to stop, slow that down, okay? And instead become almost like a coach, assist the victims, come like next to them and help them facilitate,
Yeah.
Their own situation and fix their own problems. And now instead of saying for you, saying how will you do it? Like empower the victims, like what do you think you need to do? Or what is it that you need from me to help you get where it is that you need to get to? So instead of doing it automatically, ask permission. Just ask permission first. Would it be helpful to you if I did this?
That's the key. You've hit it, Juliana. Mm-hmm. It's asking the questions, right? Mm-hmm. Because I have found that when people have failed to help me was the moments where they stopped asking me what I needed.
Yeah.
What I needed in this moment, checking in on me as the person, as opposed to me, the person that needs to be rescued in a situation. So it is asking the question, what is my intention in this moment with rescuing this person? And also, do they need to be rescued? And lastly, ask the person directly, how do you want me to show up for you in this moment? Because if you do not ask, you will fall short. And then it starts its own little cycle over here because this person feels victimized by you, the rescuer.
Yeah. And what's interesting is when you do look at the research, men tend to be more of the rescuer, and whatever the problem is, they're ready because they got to save the damsel in distress, right? But like you said, is the last question, I love the last question you said, is how can I show up for you? It's really important the rescuer understands the desired outcome of the victim.
Yeah.
Because your perception could be totally different from their perception. So once you ask that question, then also you could provide better resources. You can just make the relationship better by just asking.
Mm-hmm. And I think that asking the question is the first step to stepping out of the drama triangle, right? Because a lot of the issues with the drama triangle that I am witnessing in my own life has to do with reactivity. I'm just reacting to things rather than responding, rather than being mindful and considerate of what the other person needs in that moment. And so stepping out, how do you actively step out of the drama triangle? Asking the questions as to your intention, but also asking what is happening. Is this my interpretation of what's happening, or is this really unfolding in the way that I'm perceiving? Because those are two different things, right? Your interpretation and then what's actually happening are two different things. And
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think especially when you talk about adoptive families, how powerful would it be if adoptive parents actually sat down, because they see themselves as the rescuers, but sat down with the adoptees and saying, did you really want to be adopted? Or what are you thinking and how are you feeling when people make these kind of comments like, you should be glad that you're adopted. Your parents saved you from this and your parents are such superheroes. I'm just thinking now, if you ask me that question, I'd be like, I would be speechless. Just even now as I'm asking myself that question,
Yeah.
I think it takes a very courageous person, to stop and ask adoptees from their perspective, because often we are told the reason why I say we is because I'm an adoptee myself, but adoptees are often told how they should feel about their adoption. And a lot of times it is either incongruent or it's completely, what's the word? You'll help me find the word, but it's completely opposite of what they're really thinking or feeling. And that's why they start suppressing their thoughts and feelings, because they feel a certain way and somebody comes along and says, no, you need to feel this way. Society keeps on telling us as adoptees, we need to feel this way. We need to feel happy and joyful that we got adopted and we were of our identity, and but if somebody actually sat down, if your adoptive parents sit down and says, wait, I know I don't know too much about your identity, but I know you have a history. So, and I don't even know truly what that history is, but tell me what you're thinking now as far as being with our family, and how does that play as you think about your past? Something like that. That's a little bit too therapeutic, but.
No, those are powerful questions. And I think that the course of my life would have changed had my mom asked me those really tough questions and made me go inwards and validate my experience more. That is what I seek as an adult, is validation. And so had I had that growing up, I think I wouldn't be this kind of ambitious, accolade seeking adult that I am now, and I really struggle with needing to be affirmed by outside sources. And I work actively on affirming myself, affirming my inner child, making sure my little one feels precious and held and seen, because I will never fully get the level of acknowledgement that I need, that my spirit needs in this juncture of my life, from an outside source. I never will. Yeah. I continue to seek it. And we all do that, right? We all seek the thing that will never come forth. Yeah. And we torment ourselves in the seeking of it. And I just want to give us all the permission to step back and away from the corrosive thing that is rotting our lives. We actually can do that. And how you do that is by asking questions, by refusing to be a rescuer in situations that do not pertain to you. You can support. There's ways to support without completely jumping in head first, and examining when I'm blaming someone else for a situation that we both participated in. Yeah. And examining when I'm being poor me, woe is me, and finding ways to pivot into empowerment.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. I love the fact that you use the word pivot, because that's definitely what a persecutor really needs to do, is pivot. And what I mean by pivot, if you've ever played basketball, you know what. I do sport analogies too much, but anyway, or reframe, whatever you want to call it. You need to change the way you're thinking, especially from a perspective, instead of the blaming, which you just mentioned. Instead of blaming people, what will it take for you to start building others up? Because you do have an analytical eye. As you can be critical, you can be criticizing, but now use that gift and help build that other person up, provide support. Instead of saying poor you, saying you can do it. So I challenge anybody who sees themselves as the blamer and as the villain to change that around and say, hey, today, instead of doing that, I'm trying to think. There's a villain in Disney, and I can't think. They were negative. They used to be a villain, and then they changed into a positive. Who was it? I can't think of it right now. But yeah, that's all it is. As from a persecutor, you start lifting up other people, and the way you do that is you gotta. Like you just mentioned earlier, you got to ask them also directly, especially the victims. You got to ask them directly, what is it that you need from me? And you got to be willing to humble yourself and help others grow and teach them how they can grow. Because you do, And for me, in order for somebody to be critical, they're able to see the world in a different way, right? They're able to see what's wrong with the world. If you're able to see what's wrong in the world, why not sit down and figure out what needs to happen to make it right?
Mm-hmm.
Each other's. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's too much.
No, it's right on. Figure out what we can do to make it right. That is the biggest strategy to stepping back and out of the drama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yay! Yeah. This was excellent.
Yeah, you're done. My job here is done. So just have helpful intentions. That's what I would say. Have helpful intentions.
Another beautiful episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to my guest today. If you liked this episode, the best way to support me and this work is to write an iTunes review, a 5-star review. This helps us reach the top of searches and helps more people to find us. And if you personally want to connect, please reach out on Instagram or Facebook. And I have some great resource material on my website at laniceantoineshelley.com. So go on over there too. Until next we meet, go gently and have courage, my love.